down in Santa Cruz, they would have like Bethany Bible College summer camp where we would do fundraisers to send our youth group down, and those were the kind of on the top of the hill moments of like, we experienced God for a week. Now let's bring that fire back to our city and change lives.
I rededicated my life to Christ.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes. And then you're like super horny for God for like a month, and then you're like, back to feeling bad for jacking off.
Everybody, we're back with another episode of Growing Up Christian. I'm Sam.
I'm Casey.
I'm Jeremiah.
Woo! We have Jeremiah back. I feel like it's been a little while, man.
It's been 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks.
I'm just happy every time my agent contacts me to say you guys are interested in booking me for another, Just glad to be back.
You got booked. So this was, I don't know if it happened this week, Casey, or if it was the week before, but
it's apparently been a little bit.
There's a little special man in the news as of late who goes by the name of, and he goes by this name because it is his name, Jesse Lee Peterson. Just another shitty Peterson, like, Jordan.
Yeah, and so I first learned about Jesse Lee Peterson from my friend Sophie. She was sending me videos.
You knew about him before recently.
Yeah, so I knew about it from her because she had sent me some videos, and she's like, have you heard of this guy? He's like a pastor and a radio show host, and he says like the most insane, unhinged things about like women and gay people and stuff. And I tried watching a few of his videos, like just to get a feel for the guy, like back then. And I'm like, I can't do it. This is so stupid. Like,
now, Jeremiah, you didn't have familiarity with him?
No, I don't know anything about this person.
Okay, same. I only heard about him when the story. So the story is, it broke that. I don't know. It sounds like it was a past thing. Like things have come up about things that happened in his past where he might have done some gay shit, despite all the stuff he has to say about gay people.
Yeah. So he's a very weird character. So he's a Los Angeles-based pastor and online radio host, and he's kind of like risen to prominence in the same way as like Milo Yiannopoulos or one of those, like just saying the most extreme stuff. Okay, and in his case, he talks a lot about like women and traditional gender roles and how they're evil and he hates them. Basically,
women are evil and he hates them, or he has a problem with traditional gender roles. I don't think it's the second.
All of it. All of it.
Not all of it. What do you mean traditional gender roles?
No. He advocates for traditional gender roles, but like turned up to 11.
Gotcha.
Like that's the thing is like going into this, we're going to play some clips. And before we do that, there is no way that anyone thinks like this. And I know like in, evangelical sphere, it's like popular to phrase everything as like, oh, it's the Handmaid's Tale come to real life and these people are crazy and they want to oppress women and stuff like that. Like this guy is kind of like the poster child of those ideas. And I just don't believe him. Like it's so cartoonish and ludicrous that like, I just cannot believe that this guy is a serious person holding these positions.
Is he a serious person though? Like, because you use the example of Milo Yiannopoulos, who is pretty much just a troll. Like you have to assume he doesn't have any beliefs. He just says whatever gets you talking about him again. So is this guy for real?
I think this guy's kind of like a ham-fisted, less calculated version of that. He's a troll that might be a little lost in the character that he's playing.
Okay.
He's like fully invested in his D&D character at this point. You just can't tell the difference between that and reality.
He just like came home from the Comic-Con and never took his cosplay off.
Exactly. he's just LARPing as the world's biggest piece of shit, and he can't stop.
Yeah, and he's got some real cool views about gay people, which kind of play into this story because basically there was a short news documentary thing that came out where two of his former associates accused him of like making advances on him. One of them claims that he had a 10-year sexual relationship with him.
Okay.
That's a little past advances. I feel like we're going quick here.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like one of these is a very serious like 10-year relationship accusation, and the other one is like, oh, he tugged his pud in front of me.
Oh, he
I
did
mean, I
the old
think
Louis.
once you're 10 years into a relationship, like how long does it have to be for common law marriage?
Right?
Like,
I mean,
I think that's
something
past
along
best.
those lines.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a fling anymore.
I don't even know what this guy looks like, so I gotta look him up.
Well, the guy that's saying he had a 10-year relationship to him, like, so just to give you an idea of this guy's situation,
All right.
his
So
quote in
a
reference
man
to
is
this,
saying he had a secret 10-year relationship with Jesse Lee Peters.
yes,
Was
that's
this
what I just
while?
said.
Yeah. Was this while? Shut the fuck up. Was this while Jesse was doing his like prominent radio show shit? Was it before Pastor? After? Like, I don't know what his timeline is.
From my understanding is he was a pastor. He probably wasn't like a radio host at this point.
Okay.
I think that's more recent. But so the guy that's accusing him of having the relationship, the quote that he gave to kick the whole thing off is, "I'm very sorry to have Jesse's situation damage the conservative movement." So there's some context for you.
Oh, okay. I was like, waiting for something else, something
It's like,
magical to happen.
I'm really sorry that this could affect Ted Cruz's Senate run next time around.
Now,
But
when he says he's really sorry, though, like what thing is he sorry that is going to affect the movement? Like, what's the specific thing? Like that this guy's a hypocrite, a liar,
I think
or that
all
he's
of it.
gay? Okay, all
I
right.
think it's like, oh, this guy, he's a leader in this movement, and people look up to him supposedly. And as it turns out, he's a hypocrite. So
Shocking.
I'm shocked.
let me just kick this off. I'm going to play a clip for you here, just to kind of give you an idea who this guy is.
I think whether women or men were in charge, because we live in a fallen world, schools are gonna become further and further away from God. In my opinion, the further we get away from God as a country as a whole.
But it wouldn't do that if men were in charge. And the reason for that is that God above is the man's God, and the God below is the woman's God.
There's not more? Like that's the argument?
He doesn't do it. He doesn't really do details. He has a very good
the
tactic.
woman's God is in the details.
He's got this great tactic that he uses on much smarter people than himself, where he says something so outlandish and so vague that the person he's interviewing or talking to or debating just cannot cope with it. And they spend the next 5 minutes trying to understand what he could possibly mean by what he said.
When he's saying the God above and the God below, is the God below Satan? Or is this okay.
It seems that would be the case, that women, but now it sounds like he's insinuating that women worship Satan, that's their God. But
what other thing could explain?
He would argue that they would.
Yeah. What else could explain women getting uppity and wanting rights and things? Like it's got to be the devil.
I know that serpent whispering in their ear again.
So the clip that this video is from, you can find it, but it's a debate, I guess you could call it that, between
she sounds like
Lee Peterson and he had this Paul and Morgan Olliges, Olliges. Apparently they're YouTubers.
It's a Christian power couple.
Yeah, exactly. So they made a video in response to something that he said, and he asked them on the show, and these two just totally incapable of having this conversation with him. Like he just ran circles around them in it wasn't even running. It was more just like somersaulting in a figure eight around him. Yeah. But they spend so much time trying to qualify their answers with Bible verses and stuff that he just makes them look like idiots.
It's hard to imagine.
Really, if you're on the outside of this, they all look like idiots. They all look like they're arguing and squabbling over the stupidest things. They argue for probably 10 minutes on what original sin meant for men and women. And his whole argument is Eve, she gave in to temptation and Satan became her God, and man gave in to Eve, and then So
But
he's
women
only
didn't become man's
passively.
God.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Wait, so men should be in charge because they follow the god up above, but men are weak enough to be duped by a creature that serves the lower god that was duped by Satan. So men are dumb enough to get fooled by women who are dumb enough to get fooled by Satan, but men should be in charge. But it sounds like they're at the bottom of the dumb pyramid of being fooled.
It's like
Men-
theological telephone.
men who are not born of God. That's what he would say.
So
He
everyone's
also
bad.
spoke extensively about how he has not sinned because he cannot sin since he became born of God.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you sin, that means you're not born of God. You're not actually saved. If you are saved, you can't sin. It's impossible because God is not compatible with that.
That is
Okay.
a very unique take. What's also surprising about it is that I always remember quoting the Apostle Paul when he was like, I do the things I don't want to do and I don't do the things I want to do. And you're like, that's what you would say. You're like, oh, I want to stop doing these sins. And then you'd quote that to like maybe make it less of a big deal. But it's like, I don't know that I had ever heard a take so dumb in my life. Like
Wait.
at Liberty.
The couple actually did bring up that point. They said, well, even Paul had, said he suffered from like a thorn in his side or whatever he said. And he said,
he thought it was a
where
plug
is
in his
Paul
butt, didn't
now?
he?
Where is Paul now? He just keeps saying it. And they're like, what are you
I mean,
asking? What are you
I hope
saying? And he's
Paul-
like,
Paul better be in heaven. If he's not, I don't. What chance does everyone else have? What?
he said that because Paul's dead, that means that he wasn't born of God.
Wait.
So he thinks
This
he has
guy-
eternal life also.
It's really hard to pin down, but I think he might.
But this guy, is he 73? Is this the right person I'm looking at on
Yeah,
Wikipedia?
he's 73.
And he believes he has eternal life on Earth.
Oh, he's 73? What a crusty old prick.
It's a dumb take when, like, I almost want a devil's advocate and argue the theological position just because I'm like, it has to make more sense than this.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude,
I know.
they kept-
That's why you got me fucking up here getting all Apostle Paul on his ass. It's like, oh man, I'm diving back into my old persona. Also,
the couple threw a couple of Bible verses at him, and he said he threw like 1 John something or other out. And when they kept asking him about the passage that they had brought up, he said, "I pray that God would help you understand that correctly." That was his retort.
yeah, I mean, what better way to end a conversation than to say, "I'll pray for you."
Now, you might be thinking to yourself, women aren't, you can't blame women for every evil that's ever happened. I mean, sure, there's been plenty of things that were run by men that were driven into the ground. But to that, let me give you his retort.
Do you not feel like there's any examples of kings and kingdoms run by alpha men that have gone up in flames?
Not by alpha men. When those things happened, they were controlled by beta males, men who had the nature of the woman. They had not been born of the father yet, so they had the woman's nature. So they see life with an illogical. They saw life with an illogical mindset and not a logical mindset.
Okay, I
There you go.
believe him completely, Casey. I don't think he's playing a character. I believe him. I think this is funny take because he just kind of made the correlation that if you're an alpha male, you've been born of God. Simple. So
Yeah.
Hitler's probably okay. Well, he was an artist, so maybe
Beta.
not.
That's what he does. He screams beta when he doesn't like somebody.
Yeah.
are we getting to the gay stuff? And I hate to ask it in that way, but I feel like he's going to have some really interesting takes when we get there.
I
he's talking
don't
about-
have a clip about his views on. I just didn't. There were so many stupid things to sort through that I
He's
just
talking
didn't
about
get
alpha
to.
male and beta male and like how women serve the lower god and men serve the higher god. Like, I kind of want to hear what he thinks about where like gay men and lesbians fit into that.
Oh, well, he thinks that they're beta males corrupted by their mother.
Okay.
And how that corresponds to politics. I'll go ahead. So this is a clip from his quote unquote debate with Kyle Kalinske. Who's,
No way. Kyle
my
Kalinske had
boy.
him on his show.
Yeah.
That's fucking
Or
funny.
one way or the other. But yeah, Kyle's got a 30-minute interview with him that is, it's so dumb. it's hard to cope with. So here's what we got. Here, check this out. This one I was like so excited for Sam to hear.
And do you realize that it's abnormal for a man to be a liberal or socialist or secular? That's abnormal for a man.
No, sir, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Men who are liberals are females. They have a female mentality, female emotions.
It's so stupid.
I love how Kyle's response is just like he laughs. He like kind of chuckles about it. He's like, I don't agree with that. It's like, what do you say? Oh my god.
Did you watch Sean Hannity back in the day, like when you're in high school or anything like that?
I don't think so. Back when that was on the TV at my house, it was Hannity and Combs. Maybe I got a little bit of Sean Hannity later on, but
well, that's perfect. That's perfect because Sean Hannity is an idiot, but like his tactic that he does religiously, or at least, I mean, I haven't watched him in a long time, but what he would do is he would just throw out like this very black and white question with the stupidest premise behind it ever, and be like, yes or no. And the guest is like trying to figure out how to like continue this conversation with him and stuff. And he'll just go, answer the question, yes or no. He would just squeal.
He's just doing the false premise logical fallacy where you set up a stupid question and then beat the person over the head for not answering your stupid question. Like that makes them stupid, not the fact that you're the one who asked it in the first place.
Oh, it's a simple question. You can't answer a simple question.
I feel like there was a documentary about that recently. What is a woman?
Oh, yes.
Oh man, I have things to say about that too, because as much as like YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that want to say that like they're filtering out misinformation and conservatives complain about them and stuff like that, dude, I watched the preview for that, and every suggested video I feel like is that stupid prick. I hate him.
Almost every time I would like jump on YouTube for like probably three weeks or so after watching that, dude, I had to go in. You can like say, I don't want to see this ad anymore. It got so fucking prolific that I had to do that. And I still saw that fucking ad. So thanks YouTube for not actually making, it's just like a pretend button. It doesn't do anything.
Who's that guy? Matt Walsh. Is that what his name is?
Yep. Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh is spending some dollars on advertising. And YouTube is like, gimme.
Well, Ben Shapiro's got to deepen his bench. He's got Jordan Peterson, Matt Walsh, and Candace Owens now. Like he is building the C team of conservative grifters.
He's got the trifecta right there.
Oh, you should trademark that.
What I really want is I want Rogan to start his own, censorship-free podcast network and just take like the Daily Wire will obviously be some of the first people to move to it. That's what I really want to happen.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
So they could just sell ads for like Patriot Food Supply and stuff over there on their own.
Rudy Giuliani selling like a cigar monthly membership or something like that.
Dude, Matt Walsh, I first learned about Matt Walsh maybe 8 years ago. I forget what he was blogging on before he went to the Blaze, but he definitely got like, I hated him back when I first heard about him, and he always seemed inflammatory, but he definitely leaned into that even more. It became like, here's my shitty take to how do I take the most contrarian, awful take and then just lean into that really hard.
Right. He's also a troll. Like he doesn't up until he started pretending this is a real serious documentary, when it came out, but like he's always been a troll. Like he doesn't care about what you think as long as you're going to argue with him, because he just makes stupid arguments and does Twitter dunks. And that's his whole thing. Have you ever watched a video of him talking?
Yeah. No. He's a nightmare.
He's a douche. Like that dude would get punched so hard if he did anything in public. Like
that has to be some of the blooper reel that they don't show anyone. Just him getting his ass handed to him.
I'm assuming that would be if he wouldn't talk to any actual expert on like gender. I'm assuming that would be, they would have to cut it out of the documentary because they just would have handed him, like cut him in half and handed him over.
Yeah.
And couldn't handle it.
Is it fair to say though? Okay. like this is I know, setting this up poorly. Okay, so Matt Walsh, what is a woman? For anyone who doesn't know, don't fuck your algorithms up by looking for it. It's really not worth it. But
Yeah, watch it on Tubi.
Yeah, exactly. He goes around and like on the street style, just like puts the mic in people's faces, like, what is a woman? Oh, like, and then he'll go to like pride marches and ask people what a woman is. He'll just like whatever.
It's Ray Comfort stuff.
Yeah. And so, but when I'm watching it, I started thinking about how a bunch of conservatives will like watch that and laugh at the way the people look silly answering the question, because he clearly picks like whatever works best for him. He probably asks 1,000 people and then takes one clip and is like, this one works for what we're doing. And then everyone on his team gets to laugh at it. And it started making me think that it's really no different than like the Jason Selvig, what's his thing? He talks to like people at Trump rallies and
where you're making them look dumb using their own words and just letting them like hang themselves. Like that's not hard to do, especially if you're the one. Well, I actually like Channel 5 News and All Gas No Breaks because I think he actually has like this uncanny ability to get people to say stuff that none of those other man on the street people will do. Like somehow he finds the rapper in every situation.
Oh, every time.
And when he actually decides to get serious and cover something, like I think he actually does a better job getting people's unfiltered thoughts on stuff because the way he comes across. Like,
oh yeah,
like an interview with Chet Hanks. Come on,
oh my gosh, yeah,
amazing.
And he's very clearly just joking around a whole lot of the time. So I think he does straddle the line of like, look, if you take me too seriously, it's your own fault. But every once in a while, like he, goes to a real protest or something and gets something useful.
If you're not familiar with him, go look up Channel 5 on YouTube and just have a great time. He basically goes to like crazy events and just lets people talk in front of the mic. And it's like something to do with the fact that he's like non-threatening looking and there's a camera there. People just say crazy things and it's great. A lot of them do raps.
Yeah, he can find the anti-Semite in any crowd and to rap about it. Like, that's his superpower.
Jason Selvig does The Good Liars. That's what I was trying to think of, The Good Liars. And to be clear, I think that's all very funny, and I think that it's possible that the people that he finds and the questions that he asks are probably more representative of the whole on that side than maybe what you're finding with Matt Walsh's style. Maybe I'm biased and I'm willing to have my feet held to the flame on that, but that is all. Any more clips, Casey?
Yeah. So I guess we didn't clarify this ahead of time, but our friend Jordan Lee Peterson is a black gentleman. And
Jordan Lee Peterson?
Jesse Lee Peterson.
There we go.
Oh God, you got me all screwed up now too.
Don't confuse him with Jordan
Peterson. Very Caucasian, like nearly transparent. He looks like a dead fish.
You can see hell's flames dancing through his skin.
So, Mr. Reverend Peterson has gotten some traction on his views on race, and they're pretty nuanced. So this is, again, from the interview with Kyle Kulinski. He really is trying hard to get Kyle like stuck into some sort of ideological trap. And he's just not good at it. Here we go. Here. Just listen.
I don't think Louis Farrakhan is racist. Louis Farrakhan is evil, just like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was founded by a bunch of black lesbians and black homosexuals and social justice warriors, white godless social justice warriors. And Black Lives Matter are worse than the KKK.
Black lesbians.
I think with a B. I think that was with a P. I think it was lesbians.
Like
he lisped lesbians, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to like make fun of. I don't hate to make fun. I don't care if he has a speech impediment. He talks like he has a mouthful of muffins at all times.
I mean, yeah. I was going to say a mouthful of penises, but that might have been a little too on the nose. What's interesting?
He's watering now.
What's interesting about his beliefs or positions around race in America is, let me read this little line for you. Peterson was born on May 22nd, 1949, Midway, Alabama, and raised in Comer Hill by his grandparents who worked on the Comer family plantation where his great-grandparents had been enslaved a century earlier. So he actually has slavery in his family. And
Well,
I'm
that's his
sure that his
credentials.
grandparents were like, yeah, our parents were slaves. Like if I talk to my grandmother and like if everyone has to me that's just mind-boggling to think that there are people whose grandparents were like, yeah, my parents were slaves alive in this country, and it's like having those conversations and then turning out like this guy seems like you had to I don't know. It seems like look, I think there's something else that's worth saying is that maybe there was like some money on the table here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what enticed him to go in this direction or when he started going in this direction, but maybe he had a switch at one point in his life where he was like, look, I can just go about my life doing this, or I can play the white man's game and make a shitload of money. I don't know how much money's on the table for this guy. I don't know any of that, but
I mean,
it doesn't sound like he's really thinking about it like that. That's how it feels.
he uses his lineage and his time in Alabama under Jim Crow as like a resume builder. Like
it was
my
racist,
viewpoint.
but now we don't have racism. Is that his thing?
He doesn't think there's such a thing as racism. Like he literally argues with Kyle
just
for like
alpha
3
males.
minutes about how there is no racism, there's just evil, and people, the KKK
Oh, it's a
hanging
hard
and
issue.
lynching people. Yeah, I mean, it was like they didn't hang people. Kyle brought up this specific young black kid that had like supposedly whistled at a white woman and they lynched him.
Yeah.
And he brought him up and he's like, so the people who lynched him, they weren't racist. And he's like, no, there's no such thing as racism. They lynched him because he whistled at a white woman. It was because of that. They're not racist. There's just evil. They gave in to evil.
Emmett Till. What's the name, guys?
So I'm on his Wikipedia. In 2019, Peterson called activist Andrew Yang a communist and beta male for his universal basic income proposal and said that Yang, an American born in New York, should, quote, go back to China or wherever he came from.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
But that's not racism, to be clear, because racism doesn't exist.
Is he saying he's evil then?
He doesn't hate his race. He hates his liberal beta male politics.
That's true. He also, in 2020, he called President Donald Trump the Great White Hope and said that South Africa was better off under apartheid.
This is Get Out shit. It's like fucking Stockholm syndrome shit.
How do he and Clandis not have a podcast together?
I don't know.
Okay, here's what I'll say. Like, from what I've listened to of Candace Owens, there's lots of black conservatives. There's lots of Latino conservatives. It's not unreasonable to think that someone could be black and conservative or Latino and conservative. There's lots of people that are. But there's also, for these people, like these media grifters, there's currency in espousing what white people who don't want to take racism and things like that seriously want to hear, right? There's a lot of ground to be had there. And it's clear that some people have just decided to lean in. And I mean, who can blame them? There's so many grifters now. I mean, that's our entire public sphere is just a bunch of like grifters and pot stirrers and things like that. Get your money, I guess.
That's everybody just playing that stupid white man game where you're like, okay, if I'm not going to reach a certain level of success by my own efforts and ambitions because of X, Y, and Z, if I say this, all of them are going to be like, oh, this is the guy we need to validate our bad takes. So you'll
like, oh, well, they believe that there's good ones.
Yeah.
I'll be one of the good ones.
Yeah.
Like that's like, which is
yeah, you want shares, just lean in.
Like they think this is how it exists. I could be that person. I don't know. Somebody's got to have the job, right?
Dude, he's talking about like Gary, Indiana. I think he's from Gary, Indiana. And I was watching this video earlier where he was talking to someone and he said that like Gary used to be a good community until the first black mayor was elected. And then everything like went haywire and it like allowed black people to get up in arms about whites and racism and this and that and the other. And that the city was way better under white leadership and this and that and the other. He says that the South, like black people under Jim Crow, were better off than they are now. he has like the hot, like that's the thing is like his takes are so cartoonish. Like it's just hard to buy. And like
Yeah.
that where I was going with the Candace Owens thing. Candace Owens has looked like an idiot a number of times, but overall, like she's clever and she can think on her feet, and she's kind of built for the game that she plays. Peterson is not. He is very ham-fisted and clumsy, and like, dude, the minute he gets a guest that challenges any of the things that he says, he just has to resort to like, all right, I'm going to let you answer that, but we're going to take a break. Or, hey, before we get into that, answer this question. Yes or no, yes or no. Like he just continually like cuts them off and tries to keep them. And that's what he did with Kyle, because Kyle is not going to sit there and play those games. It's like a tactic that's really interesting because it's almost like if you're a person that's willing to just play at the lowest common denominator, like you can use the person on the other side of the debate, you can use their like good nature and their effort to to understand you and stuff like that against them. Like you can turn the whole thing on its head by like playing into that, and that's kind of what he does. And it's transparent and stupid, and like if you didn't click on that video looking for the answers you want to hear, then there's just no way that this guy is going to convince you of something else, So yeah. So Jesse Lee Peterson, hopefully this is like a turning point in his life that, he's going to embrace who he is, and, whether that's bisexual or asexual or gay, he should just go for it. Just go for it, Jesse. You've got only a few good years left. Like, get on
Live your best life
before your blood turns to gravy and you have a stroke.
It's all right. Well, that's it for the clips. No more hot takes.
I have one more quote. Can I read it?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, so on his radio program, January 10th, I believe, 2019, Jesse Lee Peterson told a caller to break up with the woman who he had been in a relationship for 5 years with because she has a child who was conceived via rape. This morning, a 28-year-old... Oh, no. Oh, Sam, it keeps going. That's just the first paragraph.
He's commenting on my jaw dropping.
A 28-year-old caller named Caleb told Peterson he's been in a relationship with his girlfriend who has an 8-year-old daughter conceived as a result of sexual assault, and that he'd been helping raise the young girl since she was 3, and she also calls him daddy. So Caleb wanted to know if Peterson thought it'd be okay for him to marry his girlfriend. Quote, absolutely no. Don't marry a woman who already has children. It's bad enough on kids when they don't have both parents. It's worse when a so-called step-parent steps in because of the soul of that child, whether male or female. The soul yearns for a father, not a stepfather or a stepmother. What? No, it's not done, Sam. They want their natural father and natural mother.
It has to stop. Stop this madness.
They want their natural father and natural mother, and especially their natural father. So if this woman is a decent woman at all, she will sacrifice for her child, not for herself, but for child, and you're going to be in the way. Let her know that you are not, let the kid know you are not her father, and you apologize for getting involved with her mother. We're almost done, Sam. Tell her not to be angry and to love her father, her real father, and don't believe anything that anyone has to say about him so she can love her father and she'll grow up a peaceful young lady and have a good life.
Holy shit. So lie. Don't believe anything anyone's told you about him, like the fact that he raped your mom, and just don't tell this kid that. That way they can love them. This person completely. Oh my god!
He also
dude.
said Rosie O'Donnell's a fat demon from hell.
No, he stole that one from Donald Trump. Didn't Donald Trump call her? Didn't he call her? Excuse me, everybody, but didn't Donald Trump call her a fat bitch or something like that?
Wouldn't surprise me.
He's called her a lot of things. Like that's been one of his go-to crowd pleasers for a while. Rosie O'Donnell hasn't had a day in the press in 25 years, other than Donald Trump being like, "She's a pig."
Oh my god. That's right. Maybe he said pig, and I'm projecting the B word. Sorry, we can edit that out if it's going to cause problems.
It's a very nasty woman.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Dude, this guy's a nightmare. Everything he says makes everything he said before it worse. And he does it effortlessly. Oh my God. Effortlessly.
Unlike you saying that word.
Yeah, I know, right?
A benevolent God wouldn't take the guy from the Black Dahlia murder and leave this piece of garbage alive. That's
Hard to
all the more
argue
proof
that.
I need.
Oh my god. Well, that was fun. I guess that's the word for it.
Super fun.
I just can't wait till the sex tape comes out. Then I'll really enjoy that. Okay. Would you watch it? Let's all be honest.
No,
Would you check it out real quick?
I mean,
like a quick
sure.
clip?
no, I'm
Yeah,
I'd
good.
have to at least.
I watch videos of car crashes. I mean, why not?
I'd at least have to see like a 10-second gif of it, just
Have
to
you-
prove.
Have you ever been like
verification.
near the giant turtle enclosure at the zoo when they're like dominance humping each other? And it's just like one wrinkly, lazy, sad old turtle. He like crawls all his way up onto the other with his stubby little legs, and he's just like
A little puff of smoke comes out at the end.
That's what I want to see Jesse Lee Peterson do.
Yeah, well, you gave us a pretty good visual that unfortunately nobody else is going to get to see.
Everyone who's spent time at the zoo is going to be like, "Oh my god, yeah, I've seen it. Turtles are perverts."
Last time I went to the zoo, I watched one monkey tongue punch another monkey's butthole for like 15 seconds.
I feel like you guys were all ready to just intro the guest, and we had a moment where the podcast was about to wrap down, and then a minute later we're here somehow.
I know it's like you're not supposed to like zoos nowadays, but I like zoos. You always see something
It sounds
amazing.
like for all the wrong reasons, Casey. That's not the same as you want to follow with. I really like zoos. I don't know what everyone else is talking about.
Well, they don't show you that scene on Animal Planet,
So that's what you're saying.
I'm
is you
sitting
went-
there watching it
you went
with my
HBO
6-year-old and 5-year-old, and they're just like, oh, and they move on, and I'm just like, no fucking way.
You want the HBO Max nature documentary. Like you're tired of this Netflix and Disney nonsense.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Okay, well, we can introduce the guest for real this time. Our guest today is comedian John Ross. He's a Sacramento-based comedian, and we had a great time talking to him. He has some crazy stories, stuff that it's always fun to like learn about these people because we're getting into it talking to a comedian, and we like talking to comedians on this show. It's a lot of fun for us. It feels like they're kind of more our people, and then come to find out he was just barely missed making it, kind of like breaking into the Christian music world when it was like he started out in like the hardcore world and then ended up doing like more of like a radio rock kind of thing. But I was like really blown away by like his trajectory and how he ended up finding his way into comedy and stuff like that. So he was so much fun to talk to. And I hope you all enjoy our conversation with John Ross.
All right, everybody. If you're loving the podcast, you know what to do. Leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to it. I found out the other day that like Spotify won't let you leave a review until you have listened to a couple episodes from that show.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good function.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I just want stars, boy.
Oh, yeah, and some people might not listen on Spotify. So, but it also helps because I feel like a lot of people from the Christian world would be like, "Oh, growing up Christian, check it out," and hear the fuck word in the first 5 seconds, and then just be like, "Oh, 1 star. This isn't what I thought it was going to be." So, it probably helps us more than it hurts us, to be honest.
Yeah, and for whoever had a podcast called Growing Up Christian before we got it, we're sorry that we ruined your like audio diary, lady.
And you probably should, now that we've put it out, now there's actual documented evidence of us admitting that she had that title before us. So good job, Casey. You fucked us in court.
Hey, if we have to
She's
change
going to have to
the name
listen to
the,
95 episodes of this before she gets to that. So someone's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, if we have to rename the podcast like the Pudcast, I'm fine with it.
Of course.
But yeah, leave us a review. We appreciate it. It's definitely been cool to see some of those come in. And, if you got something to say, come on to our Discord and join in the conversation there, whether you want to talk about your miserable experience in Sunday school or the fun time you had at Christian camp, or just show me a picture of your kitty cats. I'm good with that too. Join the Discord.
He should have gone with a different animal there, but I hope people know that you literally
Your
mean
feline pets.
lines. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, please, only that. Thank you. You can find the link on our Instagram page. And with that, enjoy our conversation with John Ross.
All right, everybody, we're back with our guest, John. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you, man. I ended up. It's funny. We had like a slight exchange, and then I totally just miffed it and forgot about the message for months. I felt awful about it. I just left you hanging, and but anyway, so I'm glad you. It feels like you've forgiven me for that. I feel forgiven, so I'm assuming you're still a Christian because you're good at forgiveness.
That's my residual Christianity is showing through with my ability to, turn the other cheek, I guess.
Perfect.
Of you ignoring me, but that's okay. No.
So, John, you, I know you grew up Christian. What area did you grow up in, and then what kind of like Christianity was? What were your people? What was your tribe?
Sure. So the growing up Christian part that didn't really happen until like 14 to like 28, 29 years old.
Oh,
so
those are always fun.
Yeah, it was a late in life conversion just because the early life sucked really bad. So I joined up with the church just to make it all better. And
you felt bad about having sex? Is that what it was?
Oh yeah, I still feel bad about it. I have 4 kids.
As you should. I can tell it's working. Christianity's working on you very well.
But it was up in Northern California in a little small town called Williams, California, is where I got saved, with air quotes. And it was with the good old Assemblies of God, Pentecostal, speaking in tongues.
Yes, they love Northern.
They come up a lot,
man. They come up a lot out there too.
Yeah, must be nothing better to do.
Is it the things being shitty up until 14 that pushed you into comedy? Is that why you're?
Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, for sure.
I feel like there's always that correlation. You're like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, things were awful, and that's why I now do comedy.
Yeah, it's also something I've like told people just when I share that whole story is like, I think at the time of like how shitty it was I could have really, like, a basketball team could have been like showed me some attention, and I'd be like, oh cool, like I'll follow that.
Your mascot.
Yeah, I'll yeah,
put on that big tiger head.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, what was early life like? You said it was pretty rough as a younger kid. How did you end up there, I guess?
So both of my parents, this is gonna just come out hard, I'm not trying to have a testimony off here, but I was born addicted to methadone. Both my parents were heroin addicts, and I had grown up kind of in and out of care of different like family members, a baseball coach, an aunt, an uncle, just pretty much lived with everybody. And then they were always in and out of jail. Super like just classic trailer park living type shit, and I always kind of knew like, I'm like, I got to get out of here, man. Like I got to do something. And then I just happened to, there up in Williams, there was this a buddy of mine. He was like this skater kid. He was like the only skater kid in Williams. And Williams is like, it's all rice fields and almond orchards. So
Okay.
it was like, whoa, a guy on a skateboard. He's not a farmer or a farm worker, like this guy's different. And so me and him ended up being friends and kind of liking some of the same music. And then his dad was a pastor, and that's how I got locked in.
Okay.
Was just kind of an escape. I ended up living with them my senior year, and living with a bunch of Christian people then, because I just like kind of ran away from. Yeah.
Wow, dude, that's crazy. So you like shifting around from, you said different homes. So when you hit 14, you're a little, you're older. It's easier to make people at least take some of what you want into account. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's not, but if that's the case, like, so you're 14, you're in high school now. You said you moved in with a pastor when you were a senior. Like, what was like? where did you live? Did you have any choice over that in high school? Did you kind of stay locked into one place in high school?
Sort of. It's funny, like, especially having like kids now, I see, like, if they wanted to do what they wanted to do, like, what am I going to do about it? So I think I kind of was flexing that muscle without knowing it. I was, 6'3" and 100 pounds lighter than I am now, but still I was like, I'm not gonna, there's no bully mechanism in place anymore to like keep you in the family. So you're like, I'm gonna just bounce wherever. And so there was sort of that going on where I would just kind of, like, my sophomore year, I went to like 7 different high schools just in one year. Just
way.
The moving around. My mother basically moved me up to Oregon for a minute with my brother and dropped me off there so they can get a welfare check for me. And then I figured it out, and then kind of dropped out of high school for a minute, and then came back to California and was just trying to find a place to land, which also included schools. And so yeah, it was kind of that sort of scenario of and then when I was like 17, my mother, for some reason, I just moved back to kind of the home area of Sacramento area in Northern California. And my mother ended up dying my senior year of like,
Jeez.
sorry, this is like super heavy. I don't know if you guys were
We'll just make
expecting
jokes about it. That's fine.
Yeah, that's how I've dealt so far for this far.
Should we just laugh at every awful thing you say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm okay. So you could laugh now. Like, it'd be shitty if you were laughing at the time. But yeah, so no, my mom ended up passing away. She died. She died of heroin complications at the age of 51, and that's when I kind of returned back to that little town of Williams, where there was kind of some stability just to get through high school. And then after that, it was off to the races with life and trying to figure out how to create stability, and still being a Christian through all of it, and just like being like, God's got this. It's under control.
Yeah.
Was Christianity, was it like was it a comforting thing? Like when you were younger, was it like just a touch of stability, like in your situation? Or was it one of those things where like you bought in enough to be like, I guess, guilty when you weren't doing the things that you felt obligated to do or something? I mean, I feel like it could take a lot of different forms and still kind of keep a person present and in place,
Yeah. So yeah, there definitely was, I feel like my whole life before becoming a Christian, there were like, there's always like a family member or two. I like remember praying with my grandmother when I was young, like that sort of Christianity, like a knowledge of God and a knowledge of like, you just couldn't name it, it was just sort of like, yeah, there's American Christianity, and like I believe in Jesus, I think, and then through all the turmoil, up until that point, when I jumped in at 14, I mean, I jumped in. So it was almost like I had a lifelong, I think the depth of the trauma informed how hardcore I was for God. It was more like kind of like this where I was like in it for, I mean, I'll get stupid for God. You know what I mean? Like I'll give my life for Christ, and, like literally to that point of indoctrination. But it was also, I admit it was there at a certain point, there was a huge amount of comfort. But that comfort was based completely on what I was deprived growing up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, these are just normal people with toilet paper in their house. Like, and that this must be God's will. Like
you can throw out the wrapper that the toilet paper comes in without having to try to use that too to just get a few extra pieces out of it.
Yeah.
Like, this is sick.
It was just newspapers.
It's a rough situation when the preteen is like, it'd be nice, some rules and some clean drinking water.
Yeah. Can you not blow pot into my face? Is that possible? I mean, I won't mind now, but back then it's just sort of like
this feels intrusive while I'm trying to do my algebra homework. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That would have been nice to learn some algebra.
I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard it, but I don't remember any of it, and I
Yeah.
seem to be getting along okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have a foster son, and I didn't until he was like a sophomore in high school, and he comes home like from being a sophomore in high school with homework and shit, and he's like, "Hey Sam, could you help me out with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure I can help you out with that." And I look at him like, "Nope, you're on your own, buddy. I can't do anything.
Right?
This is
Yeah.
all you." Luckily, my wife's a teacher, so she was able to
Oh,
like
perfect.
step in there. But I was like,
Like, why are you
there's no
asking
hope.
me these questions?
Like, I could learn this, but also that's a lot of work for me. And
Yeah.
I'm an adult with a lot of other shit to do. So
Well, I have a
you're on your own.
podcast to do.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to go talk to strangers about how fucked up some things were in my life. But that's
So Assembly of God is one that it has come up a lot talking to people, especially West Coast. And I was sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, man, Assembly of God. I wonder. And it was so the People's Temple was Assembly of God, and that's not super far from the location that they moved to before they went to South America and did that whole deal.
Yeah.
It was in Ukiah, California.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know a lot of the history of Assemblies of God, but yeah, I just sort of stumbled into it.
Well, they're pretty wide. I mean, it's charismatic to say the least, right?
Yeah. I mean, even the one that I went to in Williams, it was pretty tame in Williams. But then you would go to like church camp and you'd be like, oh my God, what the fuck is this? You're just like, wait a minute. And so, yeah, there was like a church camp. I think it was kind of in the Ukiah area, or actually down in Santa Cruz. They would have like Bethany Bible College summer camp where we would do fundraisers to send our youth group down. And those were the kind of on the top of the hill moments of like, we experienced God for a week. Now let's bring that fire back to our city and change lives.
I rededicated my life to Christ.
Yeah.
Again.
Yes. And then you're like super horny for God for like a month, and then you're like, back to feeling bad for jacking off.
Yeah, you start reading your Bible every day and journaling your thoughts on it.
Yeah. It definitely had that.
And then you feel bad every day afterwards for about a month, and then that wears off.
Right.
Just in time for you to go to another youth event where they can make you feel bad about it for usually 6 months before you get your shit back kicked into gear, and then you start the cycle all over again.
So there was this movement actually back when I was a Christian in Pensacola, Florida, and it was like this, what they called like the revival. It's just a term that's thrown around, but I guess there was a lot of like charismatic magic happening in Pensacola, Florida at the time I was a Christian. And like, I remember my pastor just being like a huge wannabe for the. I think he actually went to Pensacola to experience, and then he brought it. He tried to bring like this new kind of brand of Pentecostalism into our little like farm town church.
Yeah, he was hoping to get touched by some of the magic and be able to.
Yeah, and so there was sort of these moments of forcing it, and he hired like this youth pastor who literally brought people in to try to teach us how to speak in tongues. And like, it was
to teach you
fucking wild. I mean, it was just insane.
Dude, that's something we didn't get. Like, Casey was Southern Baptist. I was just a non-denominational, which is Southern Baptist reskinned, basically.
Yeah.
It was the same form of fundamentalism, just, without having to pay your dues or get money and listen to somebody else. Because that's the other thing. Non-denominational churches are funny because they usually, Southern Baptists don't like Catholics either, but any idea for non-denominational churches that someone outside of that building could tell you how to live your life or what to do is they're so resistant to it, which is hilarious because they love telling everybody what to do. They just don't want it coming from the outside of those walls. So that's like any form of structure at all. They act like that's just inherently wrong. It's weird.
Interesting. Where are you guys from? Both Southern Baptist. So where are you guys located?
So I grew up early years in like outside of Atlanta, and then most of my childhood and a little bit thereafter was in like just north of Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I'm in Massachusetts. And I think things maybe are a little bit tame. I don't know if tamer is the right word, but just less structured. They're just like there's a million non-denominational churches. It's like some guys like, I retired from my business job and now I want to be a pastor. So they go to like seminary, maybe.
Yeah.
You don't have to. That's the cool thing about a non-denominational church is you can just walk into any community center and rent it for a Sunday morning, and now you're a pastor. There's no rules. There's no process. It's just like you could say any whacked out shit you want, and there's no one to be like, well, we don't. That's not really what we do.
There's no structure of beliefs, or there's no like infrastructure behind it where there's a boss of the pastor. That's something when the crazy thing is I started going to non-denominational churches at the end of my faith, and I was like, you know what? I bet if I would have went to this place first, my Christianity would have like lasted a little bit longer, maybe.
Interesting.
It probably would have ended with the political situation that we had.
What do you mean?
Of really seeing like how Christians really
when
act.
Biden won, I know, dude. What the fuck? I couldn't believe it either.
Right. Which I'm not like a huge fan of Biden or Trump or anyone that worships a politician, but like I think it was so cool that like the last church I went to, they would have like a Super Bowl party and there'd be like a couple beers there. And the pastor would be like, hey man, what's your problem with God? Let me take you out for a burger and we'll talk about it. And then my questions to him, it was almost like, how you give like a 2-week notice to your job. You're like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just here to get paid like you could send me home and I'll, but I genuinely liked the last brand of Christianity that I was involved in because they were actually really real people. And there were some liberal people in their church that, but that was also the same thing of, hey, we rented out a movie theater. But they did that purposefully because they're like, we're not trying to build. We don't believe you should be a Christian and have to pay for our building and, all that stuff. Like they weren't trying to mega church it up. So I sort of respected.
Movie theaters cheap?
I'd imagine.
They must be. They're just desperate for someone to use them when no one else is there.
I kind of feel the same way. Like my church was, pretty nondescript, bland, I guess, over, by anyone's estimation, but like so particular about these little bitty nuances that really don't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. It was like a lot of arguing over doctrine was a pretty central part of the whole thing. And like structuring the entire belief system around like these houses of cards, like the Bible is the inerrant word of God and has to be interpreted literally. And if one thing is found to be, allegorical or something like that, then, how do you know Jesus died for your sins? How do you know he came back from the dead? Like it all falls apart. And that's exactly what happened. Like when I couldn't buy that, a guy got on a boat with every animal on the planet and cruised around for, trolled for a month. Yeah. Like the rest of it just kind of all fell apart too. I feel like a more moderate version of that was a little more focused on like, hey, here's how you be a person that everybody outside this building doesn't hate. Might have stuck more,
Well, that also feeds the persecution narrative that all Christians have. Of like, it's because of our beliefs. It's like, it's actually, no, it's because you're a dick, like there, but also on that note, like I talked, like my kids, I have 4 kids, 3 were from a marriage and 1 was a surprise, 4 years ago. And, but they were Christians kind of living under, their mother who was Christian and their grandpa who's like super Christian. And, none of them are Christians anymore. And it's not because I bashed God. I just kind of let them watch Christians. But on that same note,
it works better. If you were all like, hey, this is bullshit. They'd be like, yeah, well, fuck you, Dad. Because that's how kids are. They're like,
I didn't even have to say anything really. But the only thing I say now is like, I would say don't give up your Christianity if it's based on how Christians act. Let it be doctrinal. Like, let it be a logical thing of going, I don't know if I actually need salvation. Like if you break down that's kind of how I feel stable in my atheism or, atheist leaning Gnosticism is, I don't believe like things happen for a reason. I believe reasons happen because of things, like a thing happens and then we give you a reason. And that's like the entire religious experience, no matter what religion you come from. It's just kind of So God created us, knowing we're going to sin, right? He knows everything, knowing that he's going to have to give his son and murder his son to, like, and then,
Yeah.
so that's the game I play with my Christian friends is like, hey, let's say you commit murder and they arrest your brother for it. Is that just? They're like, no. Well, I'm like, well, that's what Jesus did. Or that's what the Bible is doing, is like, we're guilty for some sin we had no fucking idea we were involved in, which is just so ironic to me about like how the Old Testament is so eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but Jesus died for all of us. I'm like, that seems even contradictory to how it was set up in the first place of, no, Jesus just died once. How, if it's eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, how could one guy replace all of our sin? That doesn't make any sense either. So
because
the
he was
math,
perfect, the perfect sacrificial lamb.
yeah, he's experienced everything we've experienced. I'm like, really? Like, not to get too vulgar here, but like,
He definitely, we know that.
yeah.
Like, what's Jesus know about methadone?
Yeah.
Yeah, was he addicted to anything?
It is funny that I like what I like your point about like, something happened, we give reason to it and try to figure out its meaning. But it's funny because there's like there's obviously different ways to do Christianity, and it's like there's plenty of people who will look at it and be like, this was people's way of looking at the world they lived in and trying to figure out what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And then as things moved on and then they came up with new ways for how, and then we're still doing that today. And, I just picked this tradition because I'm rooted in it. And I think, that trajectory is a helpful way for life. It's like, there's ways to do it where you can like just find it like in what you're saying, like, cause that's what we're doing. That's literally the human experience is like something happened. I'm going to prescribe meaning to it in some way. Maybe it was good. Maybe it was bad. Maybe I'm trying to make sense of it, but like, that's, seems to be generally what humanity is. That's what, like, it's hard to talk about purpose, but like, if you're talking about what everyone's, not what they would say the purpose of life is, but what their purpose, what they do, what they purposely, but subconsciously do on a daily basis is try to make the world fit into, or their experiences fit into whatever paradigms they have set up. And it's like, yeah, like, let's just admit we're doing that and then try to help each other move through these fucking shitty experiences and be there in the good ones. It gets so like partitioned and dogmatic that it's like you can't just interact with people on a human level without them being like, well, I think you're structuring it wrong, therefore you're wrong about everything, and I guess that means you'll be in hell and I won't be, so sucks to suck, motherfucker. And you're like, okay, I don't like this. This isn't fun.
I think I still do that, and I think a lot of people still do that in ways that aren't Christian, to be honest. Like, I remember when I first became a non-believer, I guess, I was like talking to a bunch of atheists. I'm like, you guys are assholes too. Like, you guys have this very strict way of being as well, and fuck you too. This seems like it's all such like this arrogant, Christianity, to talk about meekness and humbleness and being below God and not knowing his thoughts. It's like, boy, but you pretend you know what he's thinking. You're telling us, like, how can you be humble but you know the mind of God? That makes no fucking sense. And yeah, I think I just eventually became like, if you're an absolutist at all, then I am not going to hang out and spend my life trying to convince other people of this absolute way, no matter what it is, whether it's CrossFit or whatever. Yeah, like, it's just
I've never done it.
Yeah,
their campaigns for getting people in, it's not working for me.
Right.
My religion is Advocare.
Yeah, ask me how. Right. That's just like
mine was Cutco knives for a little bit when I was 17. I did so. Right. I got sucked into that.
Yeah.
But luckily, I found true salvation outside Cutco.
Right.
Dude, that's a pretty good way of summing up exactly how I feel too. And we were just discussing this on an episode the other day. But I think like growing up in that environment and seeing the way that people act and the hubris and stuff like that comes with just this idea that like everything fits neatly into this worldview that you've adopted, Like, I just don't have a stomach for that.
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, I might be like illogically resistant to it at times, but like anytime that you start listening to something or hearing people talk, and it just rings of ideology.
Hmm.
Like, this is how it is, everything according to these principles, and that's it.
Yeah.
If you were to apply this in a more pure form to whatever it is that you're trying to tackle, all of it would work out. You just didn't do it right. That's
Yeah.
the kind of stuff that I cannot take, no matter what we're talking, religion, politics, economics,
Yeah.
weight loss, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Swinging?
But
Did you say swinging?
yeah, that's Casey's. He hates that in that group too.
Swinging?
Oh no, I have a very tried and true method.
Oh, okay.
Of
It's
swinging?
kept me out of any swinging situations.
Oh, I thought you said swinging. I was like, wait, what's happening here? Why? Like,
Casey, you sound a lot like I don't know if you remember when God turned Pharaoh's heart hard, but
right.
that's what I'm getting. I'm picking up notes of hardened heart from you. Maybe
Hardened something.
you
Hey,
turned your back on
back to
God too
swinging.
much. Speaking of swinging, yeah.
Yeah, it's
John-
dude, it's so fun, like, to, especially if you, the level of Christianity that I was embracing, like, it was like it was like serious. Like, I wouldn't listen to secular music, and I would like judge my friends for doing it, like, and was like super evangelical and super like dedicated to God. And I'm like, man, I was such an asshole on God's behalf, to like close friends, that it's fun to still have that knowledge talking to people that were like me, and
yeah.
and being able to, I love to take one of my favorite things, and I don't like to destroy people's faith, and it's not like my point. It's not the point. I don't seek out people to like, hey, like, let me fuck you out of your peace, but if you kind of take, I like to at least talk to people and be like, here's, let's say the God of the Bible's real, right? And we're going to take Jesus for his word, right? And so the Bible says, like, John 3:16, whosoever shall believeth in the name of the Lord shall be saved, right? Whoever calls upon the name of Jesus shall be saved, right? So that's like I remember weaponizing another scripture about every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. Like, if I was losing an argument, I'd be like, it's cool, every knee will bow, every tongue will confess, you'll see,
Yeah.
bitch. Like, but then I thought about those two scriptures after being a Christian and being like, so if every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, and whosoever shall call on the name of Jesus Christ shall be saved, then everybody shall be saved, because they'll eventually all bow, right? They'll eventually, I mean, even if I'm one day walking down the street and the sky crumbles and God's standing before me, I'm going to be like, oh shit, Jesus Christ is Lord. Oops, sorry. And I'm guessing that a loving God would be like, yeah, these motherfuckers down here fucked the word up, and that's not what I meant. And hey, you see me and you're cool. Like, it's fine. So it's fun to, even though I don't believe that's ever going to happen, it's still fun to talk to Christians about, when Jesus died and before he rose again, the Bible says he went to preach to the spirits in Hades, right? Or wherever. Like, he went and talked to people. And I think I'm like, so he was talking to dead people in this purgatorial like area. Do you think he was rubbing it in that they were going to hell, or do you think it had any redemptive value?
Big old nana boo boo. You're like, come on, Jesus.
So I would be like, let's take your Jesus who he says he was. So you're telling me that I've got to, one, decipher everything the Christian world is telling me, and not doubt it at all, and God is going to hold me accountable to that? Like, fuck you. That's crazy. That's crazy to me, that because I didn't do it your way. Like, wow.
Dude, what you're saying reminds me of
insane.
It's like, if everyone's going to eventually, especially like for the camp of people who take, which is evangelicals, takes Revelation literally, where it's like, you're going to basically convert by force or die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because there's this little story that they like to talk about where what I believe it's like is it Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
Great
I don't know if you
names.
remember those names.
Yeah.
But it's just like, they're supposed to bow down before the statue, and they're like, we will not do it. And they're facing death. And then it's
Mhm.
like, we won't do it. So there's like this nobility in refusing to bow down in the face of force and imminent death. and then you're just like, yeah, but well, it's because we're right, because our team's right. It's like there's like this weird conflation of like, it's just it really is it's like it's moral relativity at its finest, which is what they're also resistant to, where it's like that if that's a lot of people would extrapolate that the moral of that story is, well, one, that God saved them. So maybe they're ignoring the other parts of that story, which is it's bad to do that. You shouldn't make people do things or kill them. That's just stupid.
Right.
But they're like, unless it's Jesus, then it's right and cool and good. So you like,
Right.
you just like refract that morality through this lens so that way you can
Right.
believe and say and do whatever you want. It's like, it literally just is the definition of moral relativity.
Every knee shall bow after God burns every shin off with brimstone.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're face down. There's no other way to be.
Yeah. When God bravehearts your knee off with something, you'll have no. Yeah.
After they
That's awesome.
slice the Achilles tendon, you'll.
Right. That's so scary.
John, what if? Okay, I don't know if you had, because you didn't come from that world necessarily. I know you were adjacent to it, but do you have that, like, this is where, like, was there like a big, like, oh, this is where I'm getting saved? Like, was it like a big moment for you? Do you have like, was it an event? Was it something wild?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Like, shit, I've even already, it's part of my lexicon. I think sometimes when I talk about, I think I just noted, I just said, like, hey, if I'm walking down the street and the sky crumbles and God's standing before me, like, of course I'll fucking bow to God if that's how he's, whatever and that was literally the words of the youth pastor that I was at. There was like this, it was at us when the little church I went to in Williams where I got saved. There would be like these youth events that were kind of in the local area just to get all the kids together, and they'd bring in like a power team of like preachers.
Yes.
By the way, Donnie Moore, there's this guy named Donnie Moore, which was really big here on the West Coast. He was like a chaplain for the Oakland A's. And he had like these big reformed buff dudes come and like rip phone books in half and bend shit.
Yeah.
He ended up killing himself recently,
oh wow,
like a couple of years ago. By the way, I found out when I was like, oh, but they would bring those sorts of dudes in to do like funny sketches, and so there would be like these youth events where the music would be super emotional and it would be like a fun time, and then there would be like this powerful message or whatever, and that's how kind of I got really, like, I would say, because Pentecostals don't believe you're actually saved until you receive the Holy Spirit, until you speak in tongues.
Yeah.
Like you're not, that's evidence that you've been, so you're just super, if God's like, hey, if they're like, if you shit your pants for God, like he loves you more, like you're ready to do that. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to shit my pants for Christ, like,
I think I feel it.
Yeah.
What's the funny thing? You mentioned people come in to, let's have this guy come in and coach them. Like Jesus won't be able to tell. Like if he'll coach them, and they'll start doing it right, and God's going to be like, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
But they bring in the closer, man. They bring in the master manipulator youth pastor who's kind of hip and is like, that's exactly what happened. There was, to a T, is like, hey guys, like you guys are messing around. Like one day you're gonna be out there shooting hoops, and you're gonna look up and the sky's gonna crumble and Christ is gonna be there and it's gonna be too late. And you're like, fuck, I don't want to be left behind. Like, no. And then they would sort of like manipulate you by just kind of generally like astrologying, if that's a word. We're just gonna throw out some stuff that you see psychics do, where it's like, one of you knuckleheads out there, you're looking at pornography and it's not right.
Everybody's like,
oh, you're like, oh my God is watching me, like, because you're not smart enough to know that everyone's looking at pornography at 14. At least in the 90s, you weren't aware of that. We didn't have the internet yet, but I'm like, oh my God, he knows about my dirty magazines and shit, and or whatever. And then, so there's like this huge guilt trip and a huge like FOMO aspect to it, and you're just like, I gotta do this because I don't want to go to hell and I don't want to feel bad for whatever.
Was that guy a traveling guy? Did he just show up for a while, or did they hire him for a stint?
Oh, I don't know. I think he may have been like a regional director. in a way, like, because I remember seeing him at different he was kind of like like a regional manager,
Assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he that was pre skinny jeans? Was he a boot cut guy? Do you remember?
Oh no, this is like Northern California rice fields. This is a fucking hick, man. This is like,
okay,
but says dude, so you're like, this guy's cool, man. He says dude, or whatever, Oh, for sure, yeah, goatee. Yeah, this was like before Hillsong and shit like that, and all like
everyone had to buy a new wardrobe. Hillsong really did a lot for just the clothing industry. All those youth pastors were like, well, gotta go ahead and get my skinny jeans. There was that. I asked about boot cut because I feel like when I was in youth group, pre like the skinny jeans era, it was all like slim fit boot cut.
Interesting.
That's what people were vibing with.
Yeah, out here in the city, it's funny because in Sacramento, there used to be this thing called, I don't even know if they still do it anymore, but it was like more, it kind of had more of an urban feel to it, where it was like, I forget what it was called, but it was very like Christian rappers and like reformed gang members, convincing you to not do gang stuff, and then that was more in Sacramento, like urban areas, and then you'd get out in the country where it's like hicks, farm workers from Mexico, which there was no hope for them because they were all Catholic, right? So like they kind of got ignored by evangelicals. They're like, they love Mary, and so we're gonna worry about these, the white people, I guess, is, and so they would find whichever person embodied all those demographics to be like, all right, there's a couple skater kids, a lot of rednecks that are also Baptist, right? Like in those small towns that are like freaked out by charismatic shit. But yeah, I don't remember the question.
I feel like
I think it was about jeans, so we're far away from that now.
Jeans.
the traveling guys that would show up and just be there for a while, like maybe they were a pastor that didn't have like a home church. They were almost like an American missionary, or a revival preacher. It was usually like a weird old man that kind of traveled around and said, but the ones that you liked, like that were exciting when they came to town, they almost had like a professional wrestling persona.
Yeah.
Like, morning show business consultant guy. It's like he's
right. Yeah.
He's got like weird shirts and flames carved into the side of his head or something like that. Those old like swindler tactics where it's like, you'll know him for sure when you see him because there's nobody else quite like him. And
it sounds like Guy Fieri, who you're describing right now.
That's what it was like. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Like, I'm in sales and I've been to a lot of like conferences and stuff, and they usually bring in like a speaker, for the event. And a lot of these guys are just con men, basically. Like they've never actually really done anything except convince people that they know how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what these revival preachers were like. Like there was one that was at a whole bunch of the camps that I went to. It was kind of like their thing was in the summertime, they ran around and did Christian camps, and they had like a whole production thing that they did. But the guy, his name was Pastor Pickett, and he had an eye patch, and he had like a really high squeaky voice, and he had like all these canned stories and jokes that like, the routine was the same no matter how many times you went. It was like the same stories, the same jokes, and people almost like, it was like people having a favorite bit from a comedian.
Yeah.
It's like Jim Gaffigan, you go see him and you're like, talk about Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
This guy had like the pink gorilla. That was like one of his stories. And they were all stupid, but like awful. It was just summer camp and
long form dad jokes, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yes.
Yeah, there was a guy. There was one guy I remember in particular. I forget his name, but his whole thing was exactly like he had the same jokes because I'd seen him a couple times. But his whole thing was he was in Nam and he went to throw a grenade, and then the grenade got shot and it blew half his face off. So he had like a fake ear. He had a fake ear, and I don't remember if he ever like removed it or anything. But like that was his like which I'm not even realizing this until now. He's like, I was about to blow up some Vietnamese and then God changed my life. I'm just like, what? Like,
there I was about to kill people.
Yeah.
And this injustice was perperpetrated on me, but God had a purpose.
Yes, God had a purpose. But my
Maybe it was
buddy
to
played
save you
soccer
from
with the
killing
guy's head.
Vietnamese.
Yeah. But yeah.
That was
Yeah.
God's way of telling you to stop killing Vietnamese. I don't
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that worked on you or not. You still seem like you got a bit of an edge.
He's all, so there I was about to throw a grenade into a hut with a family in it. And then God stopped me. Yeah. It's like, huh.
Men,
Interesting
women,
story,
and
man.
children.
Yeah.
Wow, buddy. You could have left. Maybe just don't tell people that part.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. There I was in Me Lai, but God had a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a guy that would come around. He was like one of those that we kind of looked forward to when he came because he was like real fire and brimstony and kind of annoying, but he was a cop for a lot of years. So he had like all sorts of crazy cop stories that he would factor in. And so it made it like somewhat entertaining. But I remember it was almost like they would bring in these ringers and they could take a really extreme position because they didn't have to follow up afterwards. Not that our church ever did follow up with any of us. It was just like lay out the rules and then don't bother. But I remember one time he was talking about lust and pornography.
Oh, shocking. I can't imagine someone would talk about that.
Go figure. It's finally somebody tackled the subject.
I know. That one's been on the margins for a while. So
I remember him talking about like a criminal profiler coming in to talk to the group of police officers and stuff. And he's like, we arrest these pedophiles and serial murderers and stuff. And, one thing that they all have in common is they're into pornography.
Yeah.
And he's like, and people in the room were aghast. They were aghast. They were like, come on, man. You saying anybody who looks at a skin book is going to be a freak? And he's like, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you're on the same road. And I'm like, I'm sure the criminal profiler said that.
Yeah.
That was like sparring at the time.
All these murderers like frozen burritos also, like I'm sure they had I had a friend, he used to do a joke. It was kind of about that. My buddy Ray Molina, he had a joke about, he's like, I'm sure because he had the same premise of like, they're trying to, there's pornography at all these like serial killers' house. And you're like, yeah, I'm sure if you search his apartment, there's a yo-yo or two in each one of them as well. Like, does that mean there was this guy, or actually a friend of mine. So I was in this Christian band, and the guy that owned our label, he used to work for Pamplin Music, which was like, it was this huge contemporary Christian label that right when Christian music started making a lot of money. It was basically the first record label that was like Katy Perry before she was not Christian, or whatever she did.
Oh, really?
But they signed Katy Perry into the Christian market. So one of the things, he would go to Nashville every year for the big convention, the big Christian music convention. And he said someone at the hotel had told him that's the highest selling time for pornography on your private television. Like the most bought pornography was during the Christian conventions
at like the hotels and shit.
Yeah. That was that was their just big day of their big day of sales.
They all get to stay in a hotel room. But I remember hearing like in church when I was in Virginia, it was like my pastor there being like, oh, the Bible Belt is, has the highest. Like if you look at how much people look at porn, it's like the Bible Belt's the highest. It's like, and of course, their whole thing is like, obviously sometimes they'd connect it to like people are struggling with this and they take a more like, gracious approach. Other times you'd hear it like, all these people say they're Christians, but they're all doing this. And it's like, okay. And then maybe we just factor in the idea that, the highest amounts of repression result in the highest expression. And perhaps you should chill the fuck out on the porn thing, dude. Stop fucking talking about it all the time, you weirdo.
Well, there's like it's probably a good movement, but also like fuck you movement there's I think it's called the New Drug Movement, and where it's actually a secular view of why porn is bad. I'm like, God damn it. I just got over the guilt of like, I'm like, shit. Like I got to listen to this and believe this now. Like that, which is fine because like, like there's porn that's unethical that even like,
for sure.
I have porn morals for sure, where I'm like, if this feels too Eastern European, like this doesn't seem right, like this seems not okay. I'm gonna go to a group of people that seem like they're enjoying this. You know what I mean? Like, but
my
like,
favorite porn is where you can read their waivers they signed beforehand. I love that.
Right. Yes.
It's like foreplay. That's where I get really hard, and then I finish.
Yeah.
Shortly after the porn.
That's how I sign the waiver. No.
There's definitely like a weird thing because April and I'll talk about this a lot. Like, we're in like a stage societally where it's like anything and everything goes as long as you're not hurting anybody, which I get it. That's a good change from where it's been in the past. I also think that there's like some itches that you maybe shouldn't scratch.
Right.
Maybe it's not good for you to watch people like mock kill someone by banging them to death or whatever. Like,
or,
I don't know if
she's
that like
19 with pigtails and a schoolgirl of it. It's like,
yeah. You're like,
she's 19. You're like, she looks 12. You're like, but she's
Yeah.
19. You're like, she looks 12. It's like, maybe we shouldn't scratch that itch too.
Yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah. That's
I like when they pretend to be dead at the end. Like, I get it. I'm not sure what happened to you, but maybe don't indulge that.
Maybe
something a little more vanilla.
Well, when you look at that, when you look at some of the things that are out there that you scroll past, hopefully, that is just the rubber band effect of the repression, right? Like, of course it's going to go that far. Of course. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, of course there's going to be some shit where people are like pretending to be brother and sister spitting on each other. And you're like, what? Like this, I'm not into this at all. But maybe if you just let people have sex and not feel like they're going to, their whole soul is going to burn forever because of they see a titty, like maybe, or they like seeing a titty, or they're confused about what their sexuality is, or what their maybe gender is, or wherever they fall on the spectrum of everything. Like, of course there's going to be some sort of rebellion that is going to cause it's actually going to cause harm, possibly the other way.
If you repress teenage boys from any sort of like normal sexual expression, it's still going to come out, and it's going to be weird and maybe scary.
Well, I think we're seeing it. I think, I think we do see it. I think the same for teenage girls. And I think, it's not like just guys are horny. You know what I mean? Like, so imagine what women have to go through on top of that, of like what they're expected to do based on what is being seen in pornography and, and that whole bundle of fucking sadness.
It's gotta be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about your Christian band.
Okay.
Yes.
We're not letting you just like toss that in and move on. So you were in a Christian band that was on a label, so it obviously had some. You were doing some things.
So it was the thing about knowing the Skater Kid when I got saved. Like, he kind of was plugged into some different music that was Christian that I liked. Of course, it all started with DC Talk, shit like that, like
drug.
And because I'm 44, so there was like this band called Petra that was like kind of a metal band, Bride, and there were all these like butt rock bands. And then I heard this band called Sometimes Sunday that was kind of like harder rock. It wasn't like butt rock type metal. And then it kind of graduated there from MXPX, and then you started getting into like Living Sacrifice and like harder bands, and then me and my buddy started a band, and we were in a little punk band in high school. Our first iteration was we were called D.O.R.K, whale genitalia, a dork.
Yeah,
that's what
whale penis, right?
But it was an acronym for Disciples of Risen King. And We played like a sober grad night at our high school, and just we were like, I mean, we would like
regular. Was this a Christian high school or
no? This was like in Williams, this little
so? You
small
just
town.
had a sober grad night where was that like
where-
for Christians who were in
No.
school, or was this like this was the thing?
It was like, we don't want anyone to die of drunk driving tonight, so come to sober grad night when we'll pretend to drink margaritas without alcohol and gamble, and we're gonna have a band. And so we would play like covers and change like the lyrics and shit. And then after that, after we graduated high school, we had met a couple guys from out of town, and then started playing legitimately like kind of harder music we were into, more like harder music. And the name of the band was Anguish Unsaid, and we were on a record label called Betty Rocket Records, and we ended up doing a lot of stuff locally. We opened for a lot of secular bands. We ended up opening for like Suicidal Tendencies.
Oh, really?
Some older punk. One of the
Cool.
guys in our band, he was like the merch guy for this band called 7 Seconds, which is like an old like 80s punk, positive punk rock group from the area that were like a national band. And so when he wasn't a Christian, he was our merch guy. Then he became a Christian, joined our band, and that kind of gave us like street cred in the punk scene, sort of. And then we got signed by Betty Rocket, and then ended up touring all over the United States, playing Cornerstone out there in Illinois.
Yeah.
Open for Zayo.
Nice.
We opened for we played a couple shows with Norma Jean. And
There you go, the legend, dude. That's sick.
Like they were called Ludacris. That was their name back then. They used to be called
dude. That
like
was
in year 2000 stuff. But
yeah, you're dating your band now for sure.
Yeah, we toured and did like screamo hardcore kind of 10 and 15 years before it got real popular. You know, it was like Under Oath and all those bands were sort of after us. Like it was weird. Like our bass player met like a guitar player for Avenged Sevenfold who was a fan of our band. I was like, what? Like that makes no sense. But we never like went big, but we were like one of the only hardcore bands on that label, just because we weren't patient enough to get on Tooth and Nail or anything like that, you know, or maybe good enough. We don't know. But yeah, so did that, and just it was such a weird, crazy experience that is super cringy, but also like was kind of a cool thing.
Still super
it was
cool.
still
Yeah.
like a fun thing. So I don't even. Yeah, it was just like I'm still friends with the guys. I don't even. Some of them are not Christians anymore. Some I don't even talk to anymore. It's weird. Yeah.
Man,
you're speaking our language. That we were very into that like Christian heavy music scene, both of us.
Funny.
That's part of how we met.
Awesome.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sam
That's
used
awesome.
to fanboy over me.
Oh yeah.
And it was uncomfortable, but
Really?
you know, I thought he was a nice kid.
I just would go to his shows waiting for him when he would do like the crab. What is it? The crab. So you guys would do, and then
you'd like cat claw the air.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you'd throw a wild fist and maybe like hit somebody with your noodle arm.
You were always in danger of like busting out your jeans. It's like if you you know when you open a can of Pillsbury crescent rolls and it just goes pop. That's what your ass would look like if it like busted out your jeans. I was waiting for that moment.
Dude, it's happened before. It never pops over my butt though. It pops over my thigh. Like that's where I'm thickest 2 C's.
That's where the chub rub happens.
That's exactly it. There's a structural weakness that happens over time.
They need to double layer that for your jeans.
Kevlar.
Just Spanx. Just wear Spanx or like a compression sock or something.
I have the suicidal tendencies story. Not really with them. It's just this is what I think of every time I hear it. So when I started my first year of college, I went to a community college. I ended up meeting this guy he had kind of gone back to school. He was maybe 10 or so years older than me. And he was into like a lot of like metal bands that you would be into if you're 10 years older than me, like Metallica or Pantera but he loved Suicidal Tendencies. And he was like, so him and I would talk about music, and there was definitely like the divide, but we enjoyed like going back and forth about it. And hearing about the bands that influenced each other. And so he mentioned Suicidal Tendencies. I had never heard of them before. I'm like 18 years old, and he's like, so he brings me in a burned copy of it, and I have all my CDs with me. We used to carry the big book around or whatever. I had it it must have been the day that he gave me that CD or something. I don't know why I had it on me in one of my classes. I was in a math class, and my professor comes over because I don't know how he got me on his radar. I don't know if music came up. I don't know what happened, but he had the ability to play a CD in the classroom, and he like grabs my stuff and he's like, Suicidal Tendencies, like, and makes this big deal about it. I feel like a fucking moron. Like, it's a intro level. It's like the 101 class. So there's like 50 kids in it. I've never listened to this band in my life. I don't even know who they are. And he just like, it throws it on and it's just like starts playing. It's like, cool. This is weird. I feel like a fucking dildo right now.
Was it a Christian school or was it just?
No, this is just community college in my area.
Community college. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he know who Suicidal Tendencies was? Or
no? My professor was like this guy. I generally do well in school. That's the only time I've ever gotten a D. Look, maybe I just am a bad person, but he had such a thick accent. He was Romanian. I couldn't understand anything he said. He would teach you how to use the graphic calculator, and he's like, all right, so this is how you do it. You press this and that, and you do that, and then you press this button here, and you get no, that's not right. And then you have to go through it, and you're like, this guy can't even teach me how to use a graphic calculator. I can't understand a goddamn word he says. Yeah. Because I'm not, I don't know, culturally sensitive, I guess. And now I got a D, and I had to retake my talk.
Speaking of Suicidal Tendency, I got a D, and that was when it all. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the lyrics that going back to your original iteration of the band, do you remember any of the secular lyrics that you turned to Christian lyrics?
Oh, God damn you. So this is me like distancing myself from, I was not the singer. But I do know this must have been like, oh man, this is so painful. I think we did learn Welcome to Paradise by Green Day. Like this would have been, I think there were some of the lyrics that were changed to that. I'm not bullshitting you. I don't really remember exactly what the lyrics were, but I know they were lame. Sure. I'm gonna, with all certainty, say that they were not prolific,
Well, we've had a few people mention that they've done similar things, and it's always so funny but I'll take that. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you don't remember.
I mean, I could make some up, but no.
How many souls were won as a result of your, interpretation? That's what counts.
I play for an audience of one, so as long as I'm kidding. No,
I think you mean 3 persons in one.
And 3 persons in one, right? Yeah. Yes, isn't that great?
All glory to God, but you can clap if you want.
Right, and if you're a hot girl, you could talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the fun times.
I don't do it for the ladies. That's just a bonus.
Right. God sends them to me. No.
So what you lasted until you said your late 20s. So what's the arc? Where does the Christianity as your, central principles, when does that start to decline and decay?
Definitely. So after I stopped playing music, I was in another little band that was a combination of a few different bands that were on the record label that broken up, and then we had an opportunity to showcase for a couple record labels, and this would have been right around the time of like there was Creed on this record label. I think it was Sire Records. Creed, Evanescence, and then there was a band called Seether, and another band called 12.
I remember them.
12 Stones. And if you don't know who 12 Stones is, that's the guy that sings in the popular Evanescence song, the Save Me, that guy.
Yes.
So that band was about to break, and we were on the table to be the next band. It was a band. I was in another band. It was called Like David, and it was a little more radio rocky. It wasn't as screamy. And this is when Napster fucked the entire music industry. We had
revolutionized it. You mean? Excuse me.
Yeah. Well, we had this is before you could book a tour on Facebook or MySpace or anything. Our deal was pulled off the table. We went and recorded a couple albums. Our deal was pulled off the table because of returns from the music industry. They weren't signing anybody new. So literally $300,000 gone that we thought was there. I immediately, like, I just had a kid. Literally went to record our demo the day my daughter was born. Literally had to like leave the day she was born to go record. Deal gets ripped off the table. About a year later, I start doing comedy, and I'm still a Christian. And so I'm still like, I'm not like a cheesy Christian comic, but I definitely am not like a comic that's like edgy for sure by any means. And so I joined up with this thing called the Coexist Comedy Tour. A couple guys in Sacramento. It was
like
an
the bumper sticker Coexist.
Yeah. And so the whole thing of the show was a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, an atheist walk into a bar. Right? Yeah. And so it was called the Coexist Comedy Tour. And so I was the first Christian on that tour. But I was like, I would already been like totally like questioning my faith anyway for a long time. There were a lot of inconsistencies that I just wasn't willing to swallow because of I had such an emotional Christianity of like, God has changed my life from like this fucking path of like junkies and, you know, the way I was living. Like literally my life got better when I became a Christian. So it was harder to see what that was for what it was, you know? And so I started going outside of my Christian circles with some of my questions, and a guy, a comedian friend of mine who was the atheist on the comedy tour, his name is Keith Lowell Jensen. He gave me this book by Sam Harris called A Letter to a Christian Nation. And it's like this, like literal, like, it's like I read it on the toilet, to be honest. Like it was like a 90 pages, like I don't, maybe more. But I was like, this, okay, this is insane. Like, this is exactly what I was thinking. This is not. And so I was married at the time. And then I started like kind of being like, I don't know if I believe this anymore. And to my ex-wife, you know, and then like my ex-wife just thought I was going to be like this terrible person if I stopped believing in it. Like, you're going to cheat on me and you're going to, you know, do all these things that you could have done anyway. Like, you know, like, and so that's when my like marriage started to deteriorate.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah, like
that's always a tough one, man.
Yeah.
That's because I knew kids in church who's like the mom was a Christian, the dad wasn't. Yeah. It was always like contention. It was always like weird to talk about because you knew the implications. The dad was obviously going to hell, but they made it work. And it was like, that's all the shifting of faith. Like when you're sucked into that thing at such a young age, and then it's like to shift later when there's so much going on, and to have it be that serious is
especially having
wild,
especially having kids. You know, like we were raising them Christian. Like I would pray with them before bed. They were smaller, you know, but like there was definitely like the stamp of God on our marriage. It was brought to you by Christ, you know? And so, my doubts, like I just couldn't really silence them anymore. And just really had like a hard time, like just agreeing with it. And then this is my ex-wife who's still an irrational person. And I was kind of the one that held the family together with Christianity, right? Like I was kind of the main guy that was believing it. So for me to question that and leave that was like pretty traumatic for her, I think, in some ways of security and what who she thought she was married to, you know, which, you know, she was still married to the same guy. Just, you know, I still had like a compassionate spirit that I had before I was a Christian. That I like kind of like am compassionate towards people and like and feel like we should help people, whether God's telling me to or not. Now it's just I just don't have that base anymore. And so that sort of started the tailspin of Christianity. Her family sort of turned on me in ways, and kind of tried to bully their way into my ex-father-in-law just tried to be like this big spiritual leader to my kids. And when we got
Oh,
divorced,
it's so tough.
he like let them stay at their house, and she still lives there. This is 10 years ago. She lived there with the kids, and they kind of like he basically was like, yeah, they're kind of mine now, and I'm spiritually responsible for them since you aren't, and like completely like blocked a lot of
Wow.
yeah. I have the kids full time now. It's amazing. But there was like this 7-8 year period of like really just like, when you're divorced, you're not just divorced from your wife, you're divorced from their family. And it becomes like it was literally like a 3-against-1 scenario where just it got bad. And it was all in the name of like Christianity and spirituality, and how I gave it up and somehow like abandoned the family because I abandoned the faith. And yeah, it's pretty maddening. I'm not even really over it, but definitely
Well, it's hard
way
to,
way
yeah.
further down. Yeah, way further down the line now, because I have my say and my kids are smart, logical people. But I look at it, I'm like, dude, these people like stole my fatherhood from them. You know what I mean? Like they stole. It's not like they stole. Well, they sort of did steal the kid's childhood, but they also stole like my autonomy as a father. Like, which is just fucking nuts. Like just like a nutty
yeah.
thing.
So there was a time where they were with, if you don't mind me
No
pushing
problem.
into this a little bit or asking, there was a time where they were with your ex-wife and her family for a while before you were able to get them full time.
So yeah, there were moments basically, and this is like not to be like a boohoo fest, woe is me type shit, but before we were even divorced, my ex-father-in-law, he came to me and he was like, he goes, hey, if you ever leave this family, I want to let you know, like, I will take care of them. And I'm like, why are you even telling me this? Like, why is that something you would say? And sure enough, it like
I'll
talk
marry
about
my daughter.
yeah. Dude, I mean, sort of almost, like maybe not like creepy like that, but definitely like there was this like spiritual leader messiah complex that he exercised. And since it was
Yeah,
his
that's it.
house, he was able to, that family was able to allow my ex-wife to live there rent free, and not really work, have the kids there while I had to work. So when you're looking at child support, what they do is they look, hey, how often do you have the kids combined with how much money do you make? So it made it look like I only have the kids 2 days a week and I make $3,000 more than her a month. So she gets a big portion of that. So it was such an out of balance, like kind of just cornering, right? So it would be like, you don't pay rent, utilities, and you get all the benefits of the kids. She was getting food stamps, not paying rent, not working, and getting child support, where I still had to keep on my own a home with enough room for the kids full time while working, while having a quarter or more of my income being raked away. So I was like, just like destitute, where literally I would like, the kids would come over sometimes and I literally had to rent a hotel one weekend because I didn't have a place to live. So, but this was all done because you're not a Christian anymore. You've abandoned the faith, and this is kind of what you get. And it was just like, it was just like an interesting thing to like
Wow.
think that like I didn't believe like I deserved that, or like you sort of feel like you deserve it at first. You're like, you're the one that exploded it.
Sure.
You're the one that changed your mind. And
That's what I was going to ask is like,
yeah,
there has to be, I mean, there's got to be some points in there where you're like, is all of this like me reaping what I sow? And,
right. Yeah.
Did I like anger God and he's judging me, or this is his like humbling process or something like that?
Well, that's a great question, because I would feel that. I obviously don't feel that anymore at all. And it's been years I've been like free of those sorts of like punishment thoughts. I mean, I would even have that when I played music, where it would be like, oh man, I jacked off today because I thought of pornography. So that means during the show, I'm going to break 2 strings. You know what I mean? Or something like that. Like there's some sort of, God is keeping an account of this shit. He didn't pay attention to the Holocaust, but he cares about, other stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Me jacking off. But also like, this is the crazy thing. I was fucking raised by heroin addicts, right? So not raised. And so when you come up against, or when you join like this sort of like fraternity of Christianity, and especially in a family where it's established, you feel like they are the right ones because they have order and they have morals or whatever they want to call it, or and it's really like breaking up with Christianity is like the hardest thing I've ever done.
It was like tempting to look at it as like, am I just returning to the chaos that I came from?
Right. Yeah. And there were conversations about that from my ex-wife, from her parents, of like, well, you weren't raised right, so obviously this is why the Bible says raise them up in the ways of the and shit like that, where you're just like, oh man, this sucks, dude. This is obviously a point where you're like, maybe they are right, maybe they are.
I was thinking about it the other day about like the paranoia around like kids and protecting them from like outside influence and stuff. Just that very like isolationist ideas that were present in the church that, I think a lot of us grew up in. And it's so weird how kids are almost viewed as like these mindless drones in a way that like, whatever they see is going to be imprinted upon them. So it's up to you to protect them from any negative outside stimulus. They can't handle it. They won't handle it. They'll immediately gravitate towards the bad thing. And, it seems like it doesn't matter how many times you see that principle play out in exactly the opposite way, where you like protect kids from all these things and like they grow to resent this what they grew up in. And I think that's just part of being a kid. That's not like a symptom of growing up
original
in a Christian.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
it's almost let them be surprised by the world. That's what Christianity is like. Yeah, like let's send these baby ducks on the freeway, which is like
right.
Because at least they're cute little baby ducks and they're furry, and I had just heard obviously like I still seek. I'm still a huge seeker of truth. Like that didn't go away, of like wanting justice and truth and practicality. And speaking in regards to the kids, like my kids are so fucking well balanced for being kids of divorce and like also like former Christians too. That I'm just like surprised. It's almost like, oh man, there is a God. But I heard this. I now subscribe to a lot of stoicism, like stoic belief, like a lot of our, like I that's my kind of new religion, even though I don't jump into it and can quote all the philosophers. But there's this guy I follow. He's kind of like this. It's like Eastern stuff, where he goes, do not worry about like motivating your children. Like, don't worry about that being a principle of like that you need to motivate them, so as if their life won't turn out right unless they're motivated individuals all the time. And then the message was like, think about yourself. Like it's your job is to provide a happy place for them. Like, because you're the most productive and you're the best person you could be when you're happy. So why would they operate outside of that? Why would they, why would that be a thing for them? That if they're happy, they're going to be motivated to do things. But if they're constantly under scrutiny about, you need to be motivated about this and stuff like that, then, why would they, and so.
Yeah. Dude, it's like, so my daughter is, she's 6, and she's started taking piano and singing, like voice lessons. She's a very shy kid, when it like comes to stuff like that. Like, but she's really opening up to it and she likes it. And it's like, one of the person who's teaching her is someone that we know, and she was like, "Look, get a keyboard if you want to, and like just set it up and leave it there. But like, I'm not a really at this age. I'm not a big believer in like making them practice. Like, if you're going to tell a 6-year-old that they have to practice this, like that's not going to motivate them. That's going to like make them be like, this is now a chore because I'm 6 and I don't want to do it right now. I'd rather do something else. But she loves it when she's there. So it's like, just let her do it when she's here. if you get one and you leave it out, she might just do it. But if you tell these kids to do it, you're going to destroy that motivation that might have formed naturally. And that's just, so what you're saying reminded me of that. And it feels, that just feels like it rings true outside of piano lesson. Like, you need to do this. You have to do this. Like, I'm worried about my kid being motivated. So if you just grill them about their lack of motivation, like they're not going to get up off their ass and just do shit because you made them feel bad about it. But if you provide an environment of interest where they want to like engage the world they live in and find it fascinating, well, they're going to explore shit and they're going to maybe find what they like, instead of just being told that everything's dangerous and scary and you have to stay here. Like, I was homeschooled home churched for a while. Like, so now I don't have a rebellious spirit at all. I'm a coward. Generally, that's my disposition. But
one day,
for people who aren't, I've watched that go south for so many kids who grew up like me. They're just like, fuck this shit, fuck my parents, fuck this controlling nature. Like, I want to be me, and they go off the deep end.
Yeah.
You can't know for sure if they would have gone that way had they just gone to public school or whatever. But I don't know. There seems to be some correlations between how much you repress your kids or try to force them to go in one direction versus like, create an environment of exploration and intrigue and just make sure that they feel like they're loved and valued no matter how much they fuck up.
And that's the mind fuck of Christianity, is because it is that. It's saying, be motivated, read your Bible, do your prayers, like, seek this relationship with God. And the mindfuck part is it's a job, but you're not saved by works. It's only by faith, and he loves you. Like, you don't have to do anything for it, but you have to do a lot for it. And if you know, it's just like this, like, weird,
it is a mindfuck.
And sure enough, whether you're a Christian or not, I mean, this is a recent thing for me to be like, oh yeah, hey kids, like, dude, be yourself. You don't need to have all these pressures. Like, yeah, I mean, I want you to do okay in school and stuff, but also, like, I didn't do well in school and I found a way. I'm finding a way. And it's been hard, to like find that way of like what you're good at and what will make a living and what you want to do, and how you're undoing your own trauma as well with art, if that's the way you choose to do it, or if you want to, build spreadsheets and that makes you feel like you want to do it, like, then do that too. But it's just, boy, like,
yeah, dude, I feel like after hitting this on such a heavy note before we wrap up, I like this. I mean, I'm not throwing shade at the way this went.
No,
I love this.
I tend to do that though. I kind of Debbie down things every once in a while because it's hard not to, like.
Well, you can blame your parents for that. Okay,
finally,
I'll give you permission there.
I blame God.
Well, he's like a parent, so he's your father, right?
Right.
I'm thinking of like I feel like if you, like, everyone has these like wild. There's a lot of weird experiences going through youth group, doing the whole Christian circuit. But which one, like, what's if you're trying to like recall like maybe it felt right in the moment, maybe it didn't, but one of those moments you look back on and you're just like, oh wow, that was actually pretty fucked up. Like, is there anything that immediately comes to mind?
Yeah, there was boy, like, your mind is fucking very susceptible to weird shit when you're open to Christianity. So we had, God, there were so many. There's like actually so many, especially in the Pentecostal type. It was never like dancing with snakes or shit like that. Like, it wasn't, we weren't in Georgia. I'm just kidding. But
I'll allow you more than one story.
Yeah. So we had this youth pastor come in who, this guy was on, oh no, I'm going to do this one. This one's terrible. I'm at my pastor's house, and me and my friend were sitting kind of out in the front yard, and this guy walks up, and the dude is flamboyantly gay. And he starts talking to us, and we're teenagers, and he is just, he's just hilarious and just like great, like, this guy. But he's like self-hating, right? And he's like, yeah, man, I've fallen away from the church, and I've been involved in homosexual, like, pornography, and I've done all these things. And I was just like, I'm just passing through, my car broke down, and it's like, could we get a sandwich? And my friend's mom, like, which is weird because she was like a pastor's wife, she didn't want to talk to him, but she's like, I'll make him a sandwich. I'll make him a sandwich, and be like, she had just never encountered like a flamboyantly gay person. It's just something she'd only, dreamed
Heard about
it.
on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah, like saw on
on
TV
Will
or
and
something. Yeah,
Grace.
yeah.
It's
And
like
so,
the first time she's ever gotten to be around a gay person that didn't like sterilize their mannerisms for her sensibilities.
yeah, yeah. And so this guy, he was like asking us to pray for him. And I was like 15 or 16 and just totally like, you see those example, or you see those things as like, oh, God has sent us this person to convert, and like we went over to the church and like went in the sanctuary and we were talking to him and just like he was eating a sandwich. And then he's like, would you guys like pray for me? And we just started praying for him in a very Pentecostal way. And he started shaking and shit. It kind of almost turned into like this Benny Hinn type shit.
Did you hit him with your coat?
Yeah. I just waved the hand and then he hit the ground. No, but it just got really fucking intense. Because he was like joining in on the prayer as if it was like this. It's so fucking disturbing to even think about like being a part of that, of like, first of all, I think the guy, like, I personally think the guy was like mentally ill, but not like that mental illness, not that gayness is a mental illness. He was just a mentally ill person who happened to be gay, not gay because he's, but I was like, I think it was like, not recognizing that in the moment of like, oh, this dude's crazy. Maybe we shouldn't like think that it's because of the sin that we considered a sin back then, but he was like feeding it to us like, yeah, I need to repent from this stuff and blah, blah. We're like, yeah, okay. Like, wow, this is like an easy sell, like that's sort of how it felt. In those moments. And I'm like so ashamed to have been a part of that, but like the same shit kind of happened to me also. It's like, my life's bad. And then I ended up getting sucked in because of like, these people seem so sure that they're right. So they must be,
Yeah. It's like he had that internalized homophobia of like,
yeah,
I'm awful, like disgusting.
It's horrible.
And that,
yeah,
if you're not mentally ill before that, living in that world and telling yourself that, it's gonna fuck you up so bad after a while.
Which is also, like I know people that believe homosexuality is a mental illness, and I'm like, so God's gonna send the mentally ill people to hell for behaving how their mental illness manifests itself. So God's gonna, okay, like,
yeah, I
wow,
think that's why
you're trying to judge God with your finite human understanding.
Right, yeah.
You and Sam Harris can go screw yourselves. How about that?
You go read another book. But yeah, it was like that was like a big one, man, that like still kind of haunts me as like someone that participated in that sort of like silliness, like just like, God, fuck, how needy was I for a parent that I would become so self-righteous. And it was just so weird, just such a weird thing. So yeah, that's one thing that I remember being fucking weird. And
is there one that you look back on and you're just like, it's funny, it
yes,
might be fucked up, but it's just also really fucking funny.
So church camp
and it's always fucking church camp.
We love church camp.
It's
dude, I am a legend at this church camp still, I think. I'm
gonna volunteer for one. I have to like sign up. I'm in school right now to be a school adjustment counselor, and eventually that means I'll have summers off. And I think I need to volunteer my summers for church camps.
Go to an Assembly's God one. They get turned. No, there was this. So all right, I went to this church camp, and there we get there, and it's like the band is like really good. It's just like this really cool experience. And there's this guy, Noah, who's kind of a senior camper. We're not junior high campers, right? It was like a junior high and high school camp. And Noah would, during the worship services, he would go up and down the aisles, like slapping people's hands as if we were like celebrating him, right? Which was just so fucking annoying.
Gaming everyone.
Like, yeah. But it was also like, I've never hated someone more while being a Christian, like it was just like, fuck this guy. And so everyone kind of had this, it was high school. So we all had very high school behaviors. And we caught Noah um, in the junior campers campsite or whatever, and he was like pranking them by putting shaving cream in their shoes and stuff, and we're like, that's not cool, Noah, blah blah blah, right? So and we had heard like that this kid like fucked a girl at church camp, which was also like, we were so judgmental of that too, like he got laid at church camp. And so we decided to pull a prank. I decided to pull a prank on him, and I went into his cabin and grabbed he had a No Fear shirt, which were like huge. Like No Fear was like super popular when it was in the 90s. So I took his shirt, I took it in the bathroom, and I took a huge shit on his shirt. This is so disgusting. I mean, and it wasn't like, like when you have like a good shit, it was like all like one long piece of
cohesive
art almost. Yeah, it was like beautiful.
A yardstick.
Yeah. It was like a county fair corn dog at best. Like that would have been if I were to. This is such a disgusting, and I don't like shit humor, but so like I folded it up in the shirt and I put it in his pillowcase. Right?
Oh, you prick.
Yeah, I put it in his pillowcase, and then I had like, I was so proud of myself, like, so I told a couple people, and all of us were hanging out in his cabin, and there's this dude named Josh, man. He was so funny. Everyone's like, man, it smells like shit in here. And then Josh is like, yeah, it smells like someone shit in a shirt in here. Right? Like very specific. Like, oh, shut up, Josh, shut the fuck up. And so anyway, like we were all in line for dinner that night. And all the boys were in line because they would obviously separate us all, because and we were all in line for dinner, and the chapel is like at the top of this hill, and I look up, I'm in line, and I look up at the chapel, and I see like the camp leader, the camp like warden, marching down the hill like he's pissed, and he goes, all the guys get in the sanctuary now. And we're like, and I'm like, oh no, like this is about the shit thing, I think. So we're all sitting in the sanctuary, and he goes, nobody eats until we find out who did this. And and I'm like, nope, I'm not, I'm a coward, much like Casey here, right? Like, I'm a coward. I'm not gonna say anything. And there's this cool camper. There's like this older camper. He's like probably like 18 or 19. He like taught us Metallica on the guitar, like Enter Sandman riff. And he's like, hey man, like if you have, he says this in the sanctuary, he goes, if you have the sack to do this, you have to have the sack to stand up for it. Like if you're gonna, and I still like was like, nope, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm not gonna. I mean, solid case. That's solid. Not a bad way to present it.
Right. And so no one breaks. And then the camp counselor's like, all right, now like I can't deprive 100 kids from food. So he's like, all right, everyone go.
There'll be some legal ramifications for this.
He's all, you guys
they start chaining the doors. They just lock them. You're like, I don't know. This feels reminiscent of not suicide. I'm sure I'm down with this.
And so he lets everyone go, and then we're walking back to the slop hall, right? And then he just comes up to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, man, you can't poop in people's shirts, man. And he just starts laughing. Like, he's all, man, like, I don't know why you would do that, but it was like a day before the end of camp. It's like, if you would have done this on day 2, you'd have, like, we would have had you go home. Like, this is not, you can't do that, right? And so I felt super bad. I was feeling the conviction of the Lord, and like literally it just kind of ruined my last day. And then on the last day of camp, they always have these moments of like recollection, and hey everyone, like come back on stage. I want you and just share like how the Lord touched you. So Noah goes on stage and he's crying. He's like, I feel like God like taught me so much of this, like, and this kid's like the most arrogant piece of shit ever. And I broke him by shitting on his belongings. And
he did not high five anybody on his way to the stage.
No, he wouldn't look anyone in the eye. Neither would I, though. But like, he definitely. So yeah, there was. And so
Is it because he had pink eye? Is that why?
right. And I realized
They're just shot, huge shot.
in retrospect, I was like, dude, the way I should have done it, I shouldn't have put it in the pillowcase. I should have put it in the bottom of his sleeping bag and not said shit, because then he would have put his feet in it in the middle of the night, and that would have been an even better prank. But I don't think he ever laid in it. I think it was just discovered somehow before. But I ended up, the punishment was I had to give him one of my shirts, and I gave him my least favorite shirt as so here you go. I haven't worn this. And then sorry, no, we need to wrap up here.
You're fine, man.
Years later, there were only 4 of us from our home church that went to this camp, and my buddy's this is the pastor's daughter, Lori. She goes, yeah, when we all heard what was going on, she's like, oh, I was like, oh, thank God it wasn't someone from our church. Right, that had done it. And it was, and like, she didn't realize it until like a year afterwards. She didn't know. I was like really quiet about it because I didn't want to get back to the home church. But like, yeah, shit on Noah's shirt, and that was a good camp for me.
Well, before we get out of here, we have Noah. We got Noah here with us right now. You can formally apologize.
Dude, one time at summer camp, the girls from our church, which it was like very out of character for them to do like a prank or something like that, but they had heard like somebody talking about saran wrapping the toilet.
Yeah,
and you just put saran wrap under the toilet seat, and then stuff goes everywhere. But it happened to be like the main pastor guy for the camp. If I remember right, it was his wife who was counseling one of the cabins. She was the one that went in, and then it went everywhere, and she fell.
Oh no! Slipped in her own.
She broke her arm, got a concussion.
Was never the same. She's still in a coma.
I don't remember what happened. I don't think anything like really public happened out of it. Maybe she was just like so embarrassed or something like that. She didn't really talk about it. I think they were trying to get one of the other campers, but it happened to be her that took the leak.
That's funny. Well, guys,
man, John, this was fun, man.
Yeah, I love sharing these stories.
I'm glad we actually got to make this happen after I ghosted you.
No worries. I'm not,
Thank you for your forgiving spirit.
I'm not a popular person. It's fine. It's not. I'm not a big. I'm not a big draw for your podcast. I understand.
Where can people find you online?
We're not a big draw for our podcast, so it's fine.
So I, just Instagram. My name's John Morris Ross the Fourth. So John Morris Ross IV. A lot of my comedies on there. And then I write a blog. I write a blog called The Circumference of Meats. That's the name of it. And there's just like stories about my childhood and just different experiences. Not a lot of Christian stuff on there yet. But that's where you can find me online. It's just Instagram and TikTok, kind of the same stuff. It's usually duplicate content.
So you're actually a fourth?
I am a fourth. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And my ex-wife, I've disparagingly talked about her through this podcast, and I'm going to continue to. She wouldn't let me name my son John the Fifth, and I was like, we missed Johnny Five. You realize we couldn't. She deprived me of Johnny Five.
It's not too late for one of your kids to change their name.
I'm gonna straight away after this interview, I'm gonna try to convince Elijah.
Let us know how that plays out.
Yeah,
they can still go by whatever their name is. They can still go by that name.
That's right.
But legally on paper, it's worth the change.
It's 2022. You could change your name.
Nothing else, freeze some of your semen, so we've got a shot in the future.
Yeah.
No, I've made too many babies, man. I'm done.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and check out John's comedy at John Morris Ross the Fourth, and we will see you next time.